to kick it off with a little bit and just the beginning of a higher level of why Google in the first place. So if we head to the next slide here. One of the things that attracts a lot of folks to working with Google themselves is, how we have innovated on our own products over time, right? So if you go back to what Google itself has built and the technologies that are involved in enabling those, we have 8 of the top 10 billion user applications out there that are running right now in today's market, right? So the other 2, Facebook and Instagram, but then the 8 others are from Google, and they're 100% powered by machine learning as well. And so we've started to take the technological advances that we used in developing these applications and making them available for anyone else to exercise themselves as well when they're working to build it out. So if we could head to the next slide. So when we think about this, so it's bringing all the best of the technology that we develop. So we build cultures of innovation and agility. So enterprises, look around and would say, we want to help work with you, and we want to help you build the same kind of culture innovation that we had within our organization. We're here to give you advice. We're here to tell you how we did it, how it worked for us, and how to help you build and implement these same things yourself. So Google Cloud brings the best of Google's innovative products and services that enable you to create those new user experiences that transform the operations of that launch and launch new products with that. So whether you're taking advantage of some of the integrations that are native to the platform that are going to be coming up that my colleagues will talk about, things like BigQuery, Google Sheets within workspaces, or leveraging any of the other portfolio across the full range of Alphabet products like Digital Assistant, Brain, Search, Maps, Voice, and more. We embed and integrate all that innovative Google technology into Google Cloud itself. And in order to do that and to have that scale, one of the things that we ended up having to start to develop and to build out ended up being one of the largest private networks in the world. And what's illustrated on this next slide is how expansive that network itself is. So we've got points of presence, dozens of points of presence in all different areas of the world, as you can see from all these little blue endpoints for our cache endpoints. And then we have yellow is larger edge present endpoints. And then you can see where we have all our undersea cables that will go in between continents and in between countries. So this brings you a expansive, high-speed, powerful network that not only gives you end-to-end security, it's custom built with layers from infrastructure endpoints, and it's derived from our own experience in protecting the billions of customers that use our services themselves. So it's the largest privately managed network infrastructure, one of them in the industry, and it helps you when you're on it. It can help you prevent even your own applications from being exposed to the public internet while you have your own global reach and global expanse of what you might be building in and of yourself. So to talk a little bit more about that, what I want to illustrate within the next slide is what you would see when you're working with a regular cloud provider. You have your point of presence in the region, and then you kind of get routed ad hoc over the internet, ending up to where you started with your end user. So that route and that hop, may not be the most optimal. It's a great entry point for price, and so therefore what you're seeing is the discount you get for not spending extra on providing your own network. But one of the things that differentiates Google from some other cloud providers is that we offer a premium tier that will route you over our network. So in the next slide, this shows you how, because we have so many points of presence along with our global 5.0 network, that we can control and minimize the amount of hops to maintain a level of network performance and throughput worldwide, utilizing this better level of network tier service. And this enables you to then have a lower latency within your applications that you're designing. And you end up seeing this show off in things that we do, right? So we just had a release of a new CDN product for media for when you want to stream to clients and an endpoint, globally distributed. It spawned out of what we did with YouTube, right? So in order to promote and improve video performance, we needed to make a high quality distributed streaming network, and we've used our technology to promote that as well. So that is now an offering that we offer outside of Google Cloud that external companies can come in and use as well to get that same technology that we built out within YouTube itself. You also see it in something like Stadia. So Stadia started as our video game streaming platform, and now it's offered as a compute streaming platform for more than one use case. And so not only does it work with things like video games, it might work with other technologies where you're trying to stream intense graphic operations at a global scale around the globe with minimal latencies. So all these things that come from things that we might have developed for something to work on, or as well as some inputs from customers that we've been working with, we end up looking to turn around and offer you on the platform itself as we continue to grow it. So it's this culture of innovation that's represented in, as you can see, in the growth of technologies that just a highlight of some of the technologies that have spun out of things that we've worked on in this next slide. So when we think about some of the advances of Google's innovation in computing and analytics, there's quite a few that come across the breadth of the board here. And if you could just tap through to show the highlights that we've done on this slide as I'm talking here. So you could think about, like, we've had MapReduce, we've had Kubernetes, and we've had TensorFlow. All of these were major advancements in computing at the time when they've come out. Oh, go back. Yeah, thank you. And one of the other things I wanted to highlight at the same time about this culture of innovation and what we've done with this is we've also supported this as an open framework. And we've done, many of these products are available in open source. So we believe in this transparency and this open usage of our products. We want you to be able to come in and come out. We don't want to lock you into something in and of itself just for profit or anything like that. We want to foster building better applications, building better things to help the world become a better place and to help your company achieve its goals. So by supporting open source and looking at releasing products and innovation that we build within open source, for customers gain faster access to product innovation. Because Google is entrenched in key projects like Kubernetes that we help develop, we know what features are coming available and when. And thanks to strong product compatibility, like, the customers on our cloud get faster access to those new features in Kubernetes. Also, we gain insight to knowing when a new feature is going to be added to a project ahead of time, so we can anticipate where the puck's going and how that feature for Google Cloud offering shows up in the community version. And a good example of that was recently with Kubernetes multi-clustering. Second, customer needs are represented within a project, right? So by serving on the technical oversight committees and project steering committees of the open source here, we can advocate for your customer needs when we need to set a direction within the project. And then third, it kind of future-proofs the multifaceted investment that Google makes in these projects, because you can rely on them to be counted and developed into the future themselves. And this ends up moving us forward within the market and ourselves of what we can offer and how we can then work with you on developing those things within the platform. And so what this is going to tie over now is I'm going to kind of hand it off a little bit to Edward here, because he's going to say this is going off into our app modernization space, and Edward's going to take over on the app modernization conversation.
Edward, just one quick moment. Daniel, you didn't introduce yourself to the group, so if you could just quickly introduce yourself as well, and then Edward, you're going. You're on mute, Daniel. Daniel, you're on mute.
There we go. Hey, everybody's done it at least once now. I'm Daniel Lees. I'm a staff partner engineering specialist within the partner engineering team. I own the security practice for partner engineering North America, and I'm also on the Inframod team as well. And I'm also happen to be the pillar owner for security and performance in the Google Architecture Framework that has recently been released.
Cool. Awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Daniel, for the great work here. Okay, again, my name is Edward Gahu, and I'm a customer engineer from the app mod side of the house. And I'm really excited on talking about app modernization and especially like containerization, especially working from, coming from Microsoft, where I was very involved into the container platform and, looking at how different that is from what I see here at Google. I'm even more passionate to talk about containers and things like that when it comes to Google. So I mean, really, we all know, right? Like containers are really at the heart of modern applications today, right? So, I mean, the adoption of containers is growing, and that's usually driven by, enterprises' needs to create compelling new customer experiences faster, right? And to modernize legacy existing applications in order to take really advantage of what the cloud had to offer from a compute perspective, right? So really, as Daniel mentioned, right, like Google pioneered and built its own business in container technologies, right? And we have brought this experience to our managed container product as well, right? To help, customer teams quickly build, secure, and optimize container-based application from, the cloud, the public cloud, and also at the edge and in your own, data centers as well, right? So we really combine that expertise, like the best container runtimes, with our managed services. And as you can see on this slide here, right, everybody probably know Forrester, right? But Forrester, in recent publication really, rated, our cloud container platform as one of the best, right, in the market. And also, we know that API usage is really exploded, right? And RPG is usually the best way to manage APIs at scales, right? And every organization, right, they're really producing and also, I would say, optimizing their workload using APIs, right, because of the agility and connectivity, right? So as you see here also, we are part of the Magic Quadrant, right, from Gartner. That's really a real excitement, when it comes to the development that we're really doing here. So if you can move to the next slide. So really, right, I mean, for me, again, having worked for Microsoft and, in the early stages of AKS and things like that, for me, a container platform, right, should really let you, your team, like your app team, your dev team, to experiment, right, and deploy modern architecture like microservices, and using processes like DevOps with prescriptive and opinionated guidance and tools, but they also need to offer a range of infrastructure abstraction, right? So you need to find a way now to manage, right? So the dev team need to really do what they do best without thinking or without necessarily thinking about what the platform itself offers underneath, right? So we also know that, in most teams, like two application team will not have the same configuration, right? Even the development team will not have the same configuration, even if they're part of the same organization, right? So we need to really have things to meet the requirement for infrastructure control, security, location, performance, and scale, right? So we simplify pretty much app delivery with serverless, right? So you can use things like GKE to be able to deploy your application. We offer two formats, right? You have standard GKE where you can still manage your nodes, but we also have, autopilot, which is the next gen, right? Where we, just take that, off your hands and we manage everything, right? Or you can also just provide us your container, right? And then we can run that in a serverless fashion using things like Knative and and Cloud Run. One other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about here is also, like things like Anthos, right? That we use, which is an extension of our GKE, as opposed to what other cloud provider might be offering, such as Azure Stack and things like that. I mean, these are more software-based type of services, which has no lock-in, right? Like Azure Stack, for example, will have to have dedicated servers and things like that, which we do not necessarily, do in our end here. So things like CI/CD pipeline that we do offer, right? So things like Cloud Deploy, which is our fully managed continuous delivery service, it really provides like one-click release promotion and rollbacks, right? And I don't know if you guys are familiar with things like Scaffold and things like, which is very open source, right? That's how we build our services, which will really allow portability. If you want to go from, any other cloud, you can still use the same underlying open source mindset. And as again, right, RPG, right, again, as I mentioned, also integrate in this mix to be able to really give also even better portability. And we integrate our services with Cloud Ops. I remember like in AKS when I was at Microsoft, for you to get any sort of dashboard or metrics, you either have to build your own Prometheus or some sort of dashboarding outside of your Kubernetes dashboard, right? But here, what I really find fascinating is in the Cloud Console, you can really look at the metric of your Kubernetes clusters, really. You don't really have to go to a different dashboard. You can look at every single detail. So that's really how we are making it easier for teams that do not really know SRE principle, that really develop their application to be able to innovate faster. And so, yeah, so now I'm, again, right, our best offering, again, Kubernetes, where everything stems from, is going to be the next slide. I want to delve deeper a little bit on what we have to offer from a Kubernetes perspective, right? So again, GKE is really the leader, in Kubernetes scalability, right? And then it runs the largest and most complex cluster with up to like 15,000 nodes, right? And that's since 2020, right? And I remember, like, from Azure perspective, I mean, because of our network, because of the Azure or Microsoft networking, you cannot really have multiple nodes. Like, the maximum that you probably get from Azure will be about 1,000 nodes, for example, maximum. Like, if you are like a company like Shopify, like, or, all those big companies that will have to scale, you will not be able to really sustain that kind of constraint in those environments. So GK is really a pioneer in this industry when it comes to that. And as you see, like, actually Gartner really thinks that Kubernetes, like, GKE is one of the best. Like, they rank GKE 92 out of 100, right, on the overall score among public cloud Kubernetes solutions. So why would you really want to go to a different cloud provider where we, actually have all the releases, as Daniel mentioned, before even we release a new a new Kubernetes version is already done on our cloud. And actually, the project itself, the Kubernetes project itself, run on Google Cloud. That's where all these communities come and then, iterate over the versions of Kubernetes. And we are more mature, right? So, like, for things like node pooling, automatic repairs and upgrades, right? And also alpha versions, which you will usually not get from other cloud providers. And the integration that we have with things like, Grapheas for container security or vulnerability checking, and all, which usually you will not have with other cloud provider if they don't use, things like Palo Alto and so forth, right, for container management and things like that. So really, I'm not just going to go over this list, but you guys see a little bit how we compare, to other container platforms when it comes to managing containers in the clouds. So with that said, I think I talk a lot here, but I get passionate really over container stuff. But again, it was nice really meeting you guys. And as you think about your your container journey or your app modernization journey, I know there are a lot of competitors out there, but just know that not all Kubernetes are equal, right? Some are just better, and more experienced, more mature than others. With that, Adarsh, I will.
Rajesh?
Yeah, thank you, Edward. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We sure can.
Hello, my name is Rajesh Srivastava. I'm a solutions engineer at Google. I work with data analytics and data management. So on this slide, we are just showing you that Forrester has, in the Forrester reports, Google has been named a leader for both cloud data warehousing and for streaming analytics. So next slide, please. Right, so we all know that Google is, at its core, Google is a data company. We deal with lots of data. We handle massive amounts of data. We analyze massive amounts of data. And with our experience, we have built a very robust portfolio for data analytics platform. We are simplifying the data analytics through the pillars that you see here in this slide. So first of all, we provide you serverless services. So what it means is that you don't have to worry about infrastructure. You just deal with analytics. So most of our analytics services are serverless, and that includes our data warehousing and analytics platform, BigQuery. So with serverless, you don't have to do mundane tasks such as software installs, patching, infrastructure management, configuring high availability, failover settings, etc., etc. So you just focus. It's more innovation, less administration. The thing to keep in mind here is that it's just not a lift and shift of your on-prem infrastructure onto the cloud. We are actually building the products and services for the cloud paradigm. So in addition to the providing you serverless products, features such as automatic data transfer to extract data and transfer data from your services, from your systems, sharing the data across Google services, federated queries, streaming analytics, and many more. So combining all these features, we deliver your data analytics solutions for the cloud paradigm. Then we provide you a comprehensive tool set for the analytics platform. So we cover the end-to-end data lifecycle management. So starting from data ingestion, transformation, storage, processing, analytics, and activation of the data through machine learning and for business intelligence. So it's not just a one-off point data warehousing solution that you will find with some of the vendors. We provide an integrated set of products and services to manage the entire data lifecycle. And this is combined with data governance and orchestration capabilities. Then we let you operationalize machine learning end to end. So so you build the model, you test the model, and you execute the model to get the predictions. So that's one part of the machine learning. But additionally, there are several other tasks involved: collecting the data for machine learning, storing the data, preparing and processing the data for machine learning. So we provide you an integrated set of services to be able to do that. We also democratize machine learning. So you don't have to have the special machine learning skills, or you don't have the special tool sets for you to be able to use machine learning features. So an example of that is in BigQuery, we have this feature called BigQuery ML. Using that feature, you can use SQL to actually build models, test models, and execute models within BigQuery using plain SQL language. And then I'm sure everybody knows that Google open source is at the core of Google. So we enable open source technologies. We use open source technologies. Open source is at the heart of Google. Many of our products are actually built on top of open source technologies, such as Apache Beam, Hadoop, Airflow, etc. So we give you the flexibility to use open source technologies along with Google's products and services. And then the last but not the least is we have a proven set of products and services. As I think Daniel mentioned in the beginning, we have 9 products. Google has 9 products which have more than 1 billion consumers each. Our products have been proven at Google. So now those products are available for enterprises to build their own solutions. So we have a proven set of comprehensive tool set that the enterprises can take advantage of. Next slide, please. Now this slide just shows you the advantage of using the serverless analytics. So as you can see in the traditional data analytics model, you have to do tasks such as resource provisioning, software installs, scaling, high availability management, setting up for the reliability, performance tuning, monitoring, etc., and then you get to do analytics and get the insights. With the serverless analytics, you can skip most of these tasks and you can focus on your business and you can focus on analytics only. Next slide, please. So here you can see this is not an exhaustive list. So this does not list every product that we have for our analytics platform, but this gives you a flavor of what we have for managing your entire data lifecycle for analytics. And we don't have time to go through all of it, but I can mention a few of those. So as you can see, we have multiple services for each step of the process, for data collection, for processing, for storing, analysis, and activation. For collection, for example, we have a service called Cloud PubSub, which is our global serverless messaging platform that you can use for data integration, data migration, and streaming analytics. We also have data stream and database migration service that you can use for database migration like to like for both homogeneous and heterogeneous database migration, and also for setting up continuous replication. For the processing, we have several services. For example, we have our Data Fusion, which is our enterprise data integration platform, which it has built-in plugins for most of the data sources, both within Google Cloud Platform and also outside of Google Cloud Platform. So you have plugins for source data sources, you have plugins for target data sources, and you also have plugins for transformation. And as I mentioned, we have hundreds of these plugins, and they cover data sources, popular data sources such as Oracle, SQL Server, SAP, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and many more. And then for storage, we have, and I'll show you a list a little bit later on. We have storage engines for block storage, object storage, file storage. We have managed services for several database engines. That includes our Cloud SQL, which is a managed service for relational database engine. And currently it supports MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQL Server databases. We also have a Cloud Spanner, which is our horizontally scalable global relational database. It is ACID compliant, and it is ACID compliant relational database, but it's horizontally scalable, and you can use it across the globe. So you can have instances within Americas, within Europe, and within Asia, within the same database. And then for analysis, we will talk a little bit more about BigQuery in our next slides. BigQuery is our enterprise global petabyte scale data warehousing and analytics platform. And it has several other features. We will talk a little bit about that a little later. And then for activation, you can see we have our AI platform, or the Vertex AI. And later in the slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But very briefly, we give you the ability to create your custom model. So you can build your own model and test it, train it with your own data. We also provide you ready-made models that you can train with your data. And we also have ready-made APIs such as for speech, languages, text, that you can just use it for your machine learning purposes. And we'll have a little bit more detail about that a little later. Next slide, please. Now, in this slide, we are just showing you that we have analytics customers across the globe in different regions, across different industry segments. So you can see this is a very varied list, and we have customers of all shapes and sizes. And this is not the exhaustive list. This is just a sample of a few customers that we have. Some of our customers are using our analytics platform for various different reasons. And I can give you just a few stats for you to be aware of. Our largest storage customer for BigQuery is close to 250 petabytes. The largest queries that we run, a single query that accesses 5+ petabytes. In terms of number of records, the largest query that we run accesses about 23 trillion records. Our peak ingestion rate, we have the ability to ingest data up to 4.5 million rows per second. We ingest more than 100 petabytes of new data every month into BigQuery through our batch interface. And loading data into BigQuery through the batch interface is actually free. Next slide, please. All right, so let's, as I mentioned, BigQuery is at the heart of our analytics platform. So just a few details about the BigQuery. It is a petabyte scale global service. It is serverless. It supports SQL queries. We also have APIs and we have libraries in many different languages. We have libraries in 7 different languages that you can use, such as Java, Python, C, etc. It's in BigQuery storage, the encryption is by default, and that is actually true across the storage services across the Google Cloud Platform. So this is you don't have to ask for it. Every data, every record that you store in BigQuery is encrypted by default with the Google Cloud Platform. And you also have the option for Google to manage the encryption keys automatically, or you can manage using the customer manage encryption keys. Then on the right side, you can see a few of the features. This is just a very small sample. There are many other unique features within BigQuery, and we can actually do a full hour's worth of session just describing BigQuery features. So BigQuery has the ability to do streaming analytics. So you can stream the data, and BigQuery, you can run reports, and you can get insights from the data from the streaming buffer. We have built-in ML, and I have a slide later that I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. We also have a high-speed in-memory BI engine. So BigQuery is both a storage engine, and it's also an analytics engine. And BI engine is actually fully integrated with BigQuery. So it's the same interface. You don't have to buy the product separately. You don't have to set it up separately. But what it does, it provides you the ability to do the analytics in BigQuery in memory, and that will improve performance. It does query optimization and caching of metadata, and it has a few more features to help scale and speed up the analytics. In addition to that, we have a couple of more features I would like to mention quickly. Those are not listed here. One is the pricing model. BigQuery, I believe, it has the most flexible pricing model that you will find in the market. So we have both on-demand pricing and the flat rate pricing. The flat rate pricing is based on you buy the compute capacity that you think you need for your usage. But we also have on-demand pricing. So in that model, the queries are priced based on the amount of data that you query, and you get 1 terabyte of query worth of data free every month. You get 10 gigabyte of storage free every month. So with our on-demand pricing model, it's actually pay as much as you use. It's not that you have to configure a certain size of instance and then you can grow up and you can scale up and scale down. It's actually based on the amount of data that your query is accessing. And because we have separation of compute and storage in BigQuery, you are able to scale them separately. So that also helps in your price optimization too. The second point I wanted to mention is we have a feature called public data sets. So you have this public data sets available, such as weather-related information, NOAA information, COVID information, and this data is available to you free of charge. So that you don't have to pay for the storage of this data. You only pay for the queries when you access this data. We also have commercial data sets. So there are many commercial data sets. Many vendors make it available, such as the market price data, real estate data, and you can access the data through BigQuery. You also have the ability to monetize your own data. So you can create your own commercial data set and you can monetize your data. We have BigQuery also has the natural language processing. So you can have your questions in plain English language and you can get the answer. BigQuery will generate the queries for you. It is also integrated with chatbots. It's also integrated with Google Sheets. So you can work in sheets like Excel-like sheets, and you can query BigQuery from within the sheets, and you can get the data in the sheets, and then you can work on it on top of it. So these are some of the features that I think pretty unique for BigQuery. And as I said, this is not the exhaustive list. Next slide, please. How are we doing on time, Adarsh?
We're slightly behind. I know you have a few more slides.
Okay, all right. So I'll just quick note. So those are the main things that we wanted to cover anyway. So In this slide, it just mentioned some of the more salient points of BigQuery that I have already covered. So here I don't really see anything that we need to go into details. There is stuff about the multi-cloud, but I have a separate slide for that. Next slide, please. And actually, we can skip this one too. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so the BigQuery ML. So BigQuery ML, as I mentioned in the beginning, we provided the ability to build, train, execute machine learning models from within BigQuery. So it helps democratizing the ML because you don't have to have the special skills, you don't have to have the special tool set, but it also helps you. It also helps you in certain other tasks, because for ML you have to collect the data, you have to store it somewhere. Now the data is already stored in BigQuery, so you don't have to move it anywhere. So that helps you scale, and it also helps you from cost perspective. Next slide, please. The BigQuery Omni. So this is the multi-cloud version of BigQuery. So BigQuery enables you to query data from AWS and Azure storage also. So as you can see here in this picture, the control panel runs on GCP. So your user interface does not change. You can use BigQuery from the cloud, from the interface that we have, exactly as you would use when you're using BigQuery just within GCP. But we have data planes running both in AWS and Azure. And so for you, it's seamless. You don't have to provision any infrastructure in AWS or in Azure. You just run your SQL query the way you would run normally. And the data plane in AWS or Azure does the work for you, and it sends the results back to BigQuery on GCP, and you get the results on your GCP console here. So this is a very useful feature, and there are more features and details into it. And when we have more time, we can get into more details of that. Next slide, please. Now, in the next two slides, I just wanted to show you, in addition to analytics, we also have database management portfolio, and as you can see here, that we have database services for different type of database engines. So we have in-memory database engine, we have SQL RDBMS database engines, we also have NoSQL database engines, and we have several other partners, products and services for database engines. Next slide, please. And actually, Google is now named as a leader for operational database management systems also. So on this slide, on the left-hand side, you can see these are the most popular database engines currently in use on-prem. And we have the alternative service. Either we have the ability to move these databases onto a Google Cloud Platform, and we also have the alternatives that you can use to modernize your application that uses these database services on Google Cloud Platform. So with that, I'm going to hand it over back to Adarsh.
Yeah, Rajesh, thanks. So folks, my name is Adarsh Yatindranath. I am a customer engineer here in Google. Been here about a year and a half now. And Rajesh did mention this, but both of us came here from AWS. I was in AWS as an enterprise solutions architect for about 3.5 years. And even with about the 5+ years of cloud selling experience, I've been a customer of the cloud longer. I was a customer of the cloud for about 6 years before I went to AWS. So lived on both sides of the fence, you could say. So if you could hit next on the slide, there's this one highlight. Yeah, so that red box that you see there, Looker, this is the visualization tool that we have. It competes with the QuickSign on AWS, and then the other competitors are out there that you see. Looker also facilitates multi-cloud. So Looker can actually plug into any JDBC backend database and pull data from there. And so, when I was in AWS, I would go to a customer, but we wouldn't even talk about QuickSign, given how not mature the platform was. Compared to that, Looker allows you to not just do analytics, but can also help you do activation. So if your customers are using Google Analytics to activate audiences and stuff like that, Looker can actually automate the whole process, so it gives you more than just visualization. All right, next slide. So we kind of, if you've been closely following how we've been going about this, Daniel talked about networking and the innovation, culture of innovation. We covered a little bit about compute with Kubernetes. We covered a little bit of analytics. It's all like the key points. It really doesn't make sense to go down to a low level and then do like a feature by feature comparison, because it's always going to go back and forth. The whole idea is, how do you see the big picture, and then you dive into key solutions. And you'll see in each of these areas so far that there's the A or the leading technology is on the Google Cloud Platform solution. So when you look at analytics, we touched on that just now, and we didn't even go into storage, and so in great depth. But in analytics, let's say predictive analytics. Everybody wants to say AI ML is the future. Quite honestly, it is the present. It is happening right now. And there are a lot of customers that actually haven't gotten into AI ML yet. BQML that Rajesh just talked about enables that. My own customer, they call themselves a data science team, but there's no one in their team that knows Python. And so when you were like, how does this work? They said it was an atypical data science team, is how they described the team as. They had BAs and they had SQL experts, and BQML allowed them to start doing AI ML on the data sets. So that's how it allows people to move forward. So moving from BQML into the cloud AI space that you see here, if you could hit the next ones and then once more. Right, those two red boxes is what I want to highlight. So at the bottom, you'll see TensorFlow. Obviously, again, Google's contribution to TensorFlow, you all understand, but that's the framework at the bottom. This sort of a slide is actually very common across cloud providers. Everyone is going to show you something like this that is tiered, but the bottom is hardcore infrastructure and framework, and then it gets abstracted away as a higher level service you go further up. So that's similar here in Google as well. What I want to highlight is, in all of these services out there, it doesn't even call out our newest offering, Vertex AI, which helps with ML ops. So everybody's familiar with DevOps, but being Google and being the fact that we've always been a data company, we say all our customers are data companies of their own. We've been contributing to the space for a long, long time, advancing the cause of AI and ML. And so this, the services are there, the different tools are there. Vertex AI helps with ML perf and ML ops. So that's the new field that we are really focusing on with our customers. But what I want to really focus on in terms of differentiators for your customers is that whole TPU piece. So if you go to the next slide, please. What is this TPU? Essentially, the T that stands for Tensor, TensorFlow. So it's essentially a piece of hardware that lives in the Google warehouse. It's managed by the cloud, and it deeply integrates with TensorFlow. What are the advantages of doing that? It accelerates machine learning. It accelerates deep learning workloads. It's good for both training and inference. So when you go into machine learning, you train your models, and then you deploy it, and then customers hit the endpoint, so the inference. Both of this, the TPUs help with. The real value comes down to businesses, because now you can run more powerful, more accurate models at a faster speed and scale than ever before. What that means is for a customer, your customers, they can now go to market with this new AI ML capability much faster, and as a result, also reduce their cost of machine learning work. You pay for what you use, right? So, but this is specifically designed and made by Google. In fact, if I were to give you some numbers, like for the gaming folks, who've used PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, it's about 10, 12 teraflops there. A cloud TPU version 3 individual board gives about 420 teraflops. And in terms of the scaling out, I don't think this is public yet, but we're looking at 100,000 plus teraflops in capacity. So that's something that is going to be tremendously valuable to our customers. We're talking about supercomputer now on the cloud. To the next slide, please. So we touched a little bit on AI and ML, and also this is just the latest report. This is Q4 2021, so it's brand new, recent AI infrastructure, the Forrester Wave report. You see where Google is at the top right in terms of both current offering and stronger strategy. Next slide, please. So we touched now on the AI ML. I want to shift into another domain, which is security. So this is, again, all these high level pillars that we're trying to hit. When it comes to security, again, Google has made significant investment, especially over the last few years, where it's caught up with some of the other clouds and actually exceeded many of them. So in fact, if you look at on the right-hand side, what you're seeing is our DLP service in action. It's just a small thing, but it actually does what other clouds like Azure or AWS can't do, or even if they can, then they need multiple services to do a little bit. So its service offerings are limited in terms of DLP over here in Google Cloud. You can actually take in data from multiple different sources, on-prem, cloud, other clouds, and still do this kind of work. If I were to talk about security and encryption, just so you know, basic things like your hard disk, a hard drive on your VMs come encrypted by default on Google Cloud, whereas on the other clouds it is not. It is an option to enable that encryption. And let's say if a customer has forgotten to do that in the beginning and then to go back and do it later on, that's painful. So I was a customer, I know this as an AWS customer before, and we would advise our customers, hey, don't forget to turn on encryption, but that's not always the case with every customer. So just we're reading that from experience. If you could click on next. It's a slow build. And next again. Yeah, so, oh, sorry, go back one. So this is the first way for the data security, unstructured data. And you'll see again, Google's in the far right. So it's not like you have to trust everything that the Google guys are telling you. Try and show that there's some facts behind what they're saying. All right, next slide. So this is yet another solution. So I spoke about Looker earlier. It is a standalone solution and it works really well with the rest of the Google Cloud offerings. We spoke about BQ Omni being able to look into other clouds and pull data into BQ. That also ties into Looker. This is another solution in the security space, which is completely unique because Google actually invested a lot in terms of research and development for zero trust. And I'm not sure if everybody's familiar here with zero trust, but this is the solution that Google has, which is based on zero trust. Effectively, if you go to the next slide, what this is saying is that it's moved the whole process of the net being authenticated on the network to bring the network closer to the user. So, for instance, if you're all familiar, if you've used VPN, you VPN into your computer, your corporate network, and then you have access to all of the things in the corporate network, which means that once you're in the network, you're trusted. So you don't even know who the other entity is, but you're in the network, so you might be trusted, or you might be trustworthy. That's not the case with zero trust. Zero trust says you trust no one. Every single request and every single entity has to prove its security clearance every single time, and so it shifts it from the network layer of security to the application layer, and then it uses basically context, so user identity and other context to decide. Here at Google, all of us, all of us are working from home these days, and we use BeyondCorp on our machines to connect to our backend systems in Google, and it is all using BeyondCorp. I can tell you one advantage back in the day when I used to use a Cisco VPN to connect in other companies, I'd be limited in terms of bandwidth and I have issues with throttling and stuff like that. None of that happens now because it's all context over HTTP. So that's an offering. I have a customer, actually, no, it's another customer that has an AWS stack. They're unable to move from AWS, but they still use BeyondCorp in front of their AWS stack for their security and for their office and the rest of it. Right. So this is also a key offering and something that to keep in mind. If you go to the next slide. So I know I'm kind of speeding through the whole notion. We want to stay for a little bit to see if you have any questions, and then we don't have answers now. We'll come back to you with answers. We started off, Daniel started off with the Google Cloud, Google in general, and then all of the different, innovative solutions we came out over the years and how we have brought the users, and we take all of that technology, let's say Google Photos. If you've used Google Photos, you know about face recognition and stuff like that. We've taken that image recognition, put that into our AI/ML services for vision, and we use that. So we know it's proven, it's tested, works. And now we've kind of given it off to our customers. So that's Google Cloud, but it's not just your core IT service, right? Google as such is more than that. Google's got. So in this particular slide, I want to show you about Workspace, and I'm sure a lot of you know about this. On one hand, on the left side, you see Google Workspace. The right hand, you see Google Marketing Platform. So we've done some studies, and studies have shown that a lot of customers that use Google Workspace, and we have customers that only use Workspace and haven't gone to GCP yet. They're still in the process of doing that. So Google Workspace works independently, and it also works very well with Google Cloud solutions as well. So let's say, you know, I think Rajesh mentioned this, connected sheets. You have data sitting in BQ, you can actually connect Google Sheets to BQ data. I have a customer that has got a lot of sales folks that rely on Excel sheets, but now they moved into Google Sheets. And now these sheets are connected to BQ, which means they get most real-time data, and it's all on sheets. So they're still able to kind of do the work that they were similarly doing, except that they just adopted Sheets and Workspace. We found that if your customers, now the end customers, are actually more happy and more, and this allows the innovation, that whole innovation experience from the customers and the users will support the top line revenue of the companies involved. So that's one key thing to remember there. The Google marketing platform, we talk about Google and Google search, you can't forget ads. There's a lot of ads that Google powers, and there's a lot of analytics that Google actually provides customers. So that actually helps customers with their revenue. You use your IT, maybe it's a cost center, there's a cost associated with it, but then this comes along and it helps customers drive their revenue. So this is also a part of the whole Google solution for your customers. Right? If you go to the next slide, please. Mentioned GMP, Google Marketing Platform. This one is a newer offering. It's not available to all customers yet, but it's important that you know this. It's where that data that is sitting on the ads world is now combined with data of your customer that is sitting in Google BigQuery of your customers' projects, and the two are combined. And this actually directly tackles the first-party data, third-party cookies going away kind of situation. It was made for the most privacy-conscious customers, so it doesn't go down to the individual. It's at a much higher level, but it helps with marketing and analytics, and the data is integrated into BQ, so you can run your ML on top of this. So that's another way how different products within the Google family all come together and are integrated, so that the customers get to get the most value. All right, so that kind of brings me down to the final slide, why Google Cloud. If I were to say something here, I won't go through all 10 points, but trust is one, and then the last one, which is the committed to the success. I've not been in another cloud where I've been, encouraged so much to work with partners to ensure the success of our customers. So that's one thing I can tell you that I can vouch for myself. If it is a new customer, obviously, you start with Google Cloud and you have this whole offering to provide. If it is an existing Google Cloud customer or non-existing or another cloud, Google Cloud also is the most cloud friendly. It could be like Twitter, where you run your analytics on Google Cloud and your front end on another cloud. The options that Google Cloud provides are endless. So I hope with that, this has been helpful.